Hello, everyone that's in Bible study land. God bless you all. It's good to have you on board with me. My name is Pastor Hubbard. I'm the pastor of Grace Temple Baptist Church in the city of Oakland. Is what I look forward to is if you ever came and visit us. Our worship service is on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We'd love to see you there. Now, what I'm doing, of course, is I'm doing the standard Sunday school lesson, and I try to keep these intact and easy to understand as we progress along. What I would like for you to do is show me a thumbs up if you benefited from my lessons and that you like them. Show me a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. For all of you who have subscribed, God bless you. I do appreciate it. And let's get ready to go to our lesson today. Our lesson today is going to come from the book of Esther. Esther is where it's going to come from. That's an Old Testament book. I'll give you a few seconds to go back and find the book of Esther. It's going to be chapter 3 is where we're going to start off from. Chapter 3. Esther chapter 3. Now, many of you are probably familiar with this particular book of Esther, and because it's been made into several Hollywood movies that have been pretty good. So hopefully you'll catch up with that. Esther chapter 3, verses 2 to 6, that's where we're going to start. And then we finished from 2 to 6, we're going to go to chapter 4, verses 7 to 16. And what I'll do is I'll keep you posted as we're moving along, so you'll be able to keep up with us as we present this lesson. The name of this lesson is called Esther's Bold Faith. Esther's Bold Faith. Now, I better let you know about this in advance so that you will be ready when it happens. This will be a 2-part lesson. And yes, when it gets to the end of part 1 of what we're doing, it's going to leave you a bit hanging at the end of this lesson, but you'll be ready for lesson number 2 that's concerning this same subject here. I think you'll enjoy it. And not only that, but you'll be able to probably come across some things that you have not come across before. Once again, Esther chapter 3, verses 2 to 6, and then we'll skip over to verses 4 through 16. Esther's bold faith. Esther's bold faith. Now, just before I start the lesson, there's something I want to bring up to you that is kind of rare, but you should know about this. There's something that has puzzled me about this book for many years. Not only me, who's puzzled by it, there are many Bible scholars who feel the same way that I do. They're puzzled by the book of Esther. And I'll give you the reason why we find ourselves so puzzled about it. We as students recognize about Mordecai's faith. In this book, he has faith in God, and he has faith in God's covenants. But in this book of Esther's, the word God is never used. Not only God is not used, but also the word prayer is not used in the entire book. But you can see signs of God, and you can see signs of prayer in the book. But you just don't see the word God, and you don't see the word prayer in there. But God is certainly not missing in this book. And of course, prayer is not missing as well. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's get ready to go to our lesson, starting off with verse number 2 in chapter 3. And verse number 2 and verse number 3. It's going to leave a lot of unanswered questions here, but your teacher here will tie all of it together for good understanding. I'll do my absolute best. I've already prayed to God about it, and the Lord has heard my prayer. It says, and all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had also commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did not have any reverence for him. Verse number 3 says, then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why are you transgressing thou the king command? Why are you not doing what the king said? When it comes to this, Mordecai would not bow. It's pretty much on here. After King Ahasuerus fired Vashti. And we're going someplace else here, but I'll bring it all together. King Ahasuerus fired Vashti. Vashti was the queen that he appointed. He fired her. Why? Why did he fire her? As we can go back and look at the history around this, it turned out that the king, Ahasuerus, had a big party. And in this party, most people got a bit intoxicated. Let's just call it drunk. They were stoned and all. And as the people looked around, the queen wasn't at the party. So they asked the king, where is the queen? And why she's not at the party? And the king said, well, I'll just call her. So he sent for the king, for the queen, Queen Vashti, and she didn't come. Well, he said, well, I'll call her again. He called for the queen to come to the party, or the drunken festival. And she still didn't come. Queen Vashti did not come. And so they wanted to know why. Why wasn't the queen following the king's order and come to the party? Well, she sent message to the king that she is not coming to a drunk-in party. She was not going to have anything to do with it, and she was not that type of queen. No, she was not going to come. Well, anyway, the king's close associates kind of thought that was out from being a queen to the king. How you can just say no to him that way. So the king decided with that embarrassing statement and action that Queen Vashti did, he fired her. It's what he did. Pack up your stuff. Get out of the palace. You're gone. No more queen. So what the king did after that, he conducted an extensive search for a new queen. Is what he was doing. And as he sent out, and it don't say how many it was, but it had to be thousands of the type that the king wanted to come. Since a Jewish girl would fit the perimeters of the command, that wasn't included. It was just people of his kingdom that would come there. Now, they're Persian people is pretty much what the king is, and his kingdom is a Persian kingdom. It just so happened that many of the people who lived there with them were Jewish people. And Jews and Persians pretty much looked the same. So there was no problem with that. So he ordered that the women that would meet what the king would enjoy or would like would be brought before the king. And of course, and they would judge and see which ones that was would find interest in the king, or the king would find interest in them. Young women would appear before the king, and the ones that the king found interesting, he would call them back for another view. So the king, of course, is what he did, is Esther came up. Esther came up as one that the king wanted to see again. And it just so happened he chose Esther. It's what he did. He chose her to be the next queen of the empire. It's pretty much what it was. Now her cousin Mordecai, he was the one who raised her to be a fine young lady. It's what he did. And of course, and she carried that type of attitude. So when she was moving from the city to the king's palace, he commanded her to never reveal your Jewish nationality. Don't tell anyone there in the where the kingdom is, don't tell them that you are a Jew. Keep that quiet, is what he said. Now, someone else. Let me paint a picture of this particular person. That's the background between two people that's in this lesson, Mordecai, and also we'll be talking about who the lesson is about, Esther. Mordecai and Esther. Another person who's going to pop up in this lesson where we'll spend some time with is Haman. Haman. Let's look at him before we put everything all together. And Haman was the prime minister of the kingdom. This was, of course, his name Haman. The king is the one who elevated him to be the prime minister. And we are told that the king also promoted Haman to a position that was higher than the king's 7 counselors. The king had 7 counselors. Haman was promoted higher than all of them. And these are the ones that give the kings counseling, let them know what's going on, and helping them with important decisions. Also, what was given to Haman was that this was given to him by the king, that everyone in the kingdom had to pay homage to Haman. So everyone that Haman would come across or Haman would be close by had to bow before him. They had to bow and pay homage to him. Homage is a form of worship. You had to bow and give Haman some worship just because he was close by. That's what you had to do. Mordecai, however, refused to bow or pay homage to Haman. You got that right. Mordecai is Jewish. Is what he is. So he refused. I'm not going to bow for this guy, and I'm definitely not going to worship him. It's what he's saying. Haman's servants noticed Mordecai's behavior, that he was not obeying the king's command by bowing to Haman. They want to know about Mordecai's behavior and ask him repeatedly. The people were asking him, why was he not obeying the king's command every time Haman came across? Mordecai just said, because I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. I'm not going to bow to Haman or nobody else. I'm not going to do that. So just forget about it. It ain't going to happen. The servants finally reported this to Haman, to let Haman know that you're coming across a particular person, Mordecai, who's kind of an important person in the government of the Persian people, but he's not going to bow to you because of what he said or whatever. Let's pick up in verse number 5 and verse number 6 as we tie all this together. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, nor he didn't give any worship in him or anything like that, then was Haman full of wrath, because Mordecai wasn't bowing to him. He saw all the other people in the crowd go down on their faces and bow and pay homage to him. But Mordecai is just standing up and saying, I ain't doing that. No, not at all. Verse number 6 says, and he thought to scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Haman wanted to come down from his protective position and choke Mordecai. Is what he wanted to do. Would have been improper, but that's what he had the desire to. For they had showed him that the people of Mordecai, who's the people of Mordecai? I told you earlier, he's a Hebrew person, he's a Jewish person. So the people of Mordecai was feeling exactly the same way. And they felt that Mordecai is the one that's promoting them not to follow the king. And by all means, don't bow to Haman. And don't give him any reverence. Don't do that. They felt that Mordecai was the one who was behind this. Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. Haman said, I'll kill them all. I'll kill them for this if they're not going to bow to me. This is what was going on. Haman was a very arrogant leader. It's what he was. And Mordecai would not bow to him. And Mordecai would encourage no Jews to bow to him. And by all means, don't worship this guy. Don't worship him. Haman wanted to destroy Mordecai because he hated Mordecai. He hated him. Soon, Haman hatred extended to all the Jews. All the Jews. He hated them all. Haman paid special attention to Mordecai, and his anger grew into wrath. He got angrier and angrier. Couldn't get any sleep, thinking about Mordecai. Won't bow to him. Now Haman hated the Jews throughout all of the empire. And this Persian empire had 127 sections to the empire. And Haman hated all of the Jews that was in the empire. Being anti-Semitic is not new. It was definitely a scene that was there. Okay, now listen. We're finished with with chapter number 3, and the verses that we had there. Now, if you don't mind, turn your Bibles to the 4th chapter, and we have 10 verses to do in the 4th chapter. 10 verses to do. Give you a minute to go there. All right. Go to the 4th chapter as I end up the 3rd chapter, just dealing with the hatred of the Jews. Ever since God chose the Jews, Satan has had a deep hatred for Jews ever since God chose them. He has been the moving force behind the centuries of hatred for the Jews. We see the same parallels happen in World War II. Adolf Hitler thought he would come up with the Third Reich and destroy all the Jews. That's what his goal was. He had the same thing that Haman had here. We go back in the Old Testament and we look at the people that's from Sennacherib. Sennacherib wanted to destroy all the Jews. Same thing that was here. So we get just a feeling for that. Okay, are you there? We're looking at chapter 4, verse number 7. That's what we're going to do. But to kind of tie things together, we're going to go verse number 7, verse number 8, and verse number 9. Let's put this account together so we can see where we're going with this. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasury for the Jews to destroy them. Verse number 8, also he gave him a copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them and show them to Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go unto the king and to make supplications unto him, and to make a request before him to her people. And number 9 says, and Hatak came to told Esther the words of Mordecai. Now, you wouldn't understand any of that if we just read it just at face value, but I'm going to take a moment to explain it all, to tie everything together. Queen Esther had not heard that Mordecai was, why he was mourning. Mordecai was mourning, meaning that he was wearing sackcloth, and she was wondering what was wrong. Why was he mourning? And of course, Mordecai was a very close person. He pretty much raised the queen, so a very close person. But he was in mourning. Well, this is what happened. Hezekiah, what he did is he went to, well, let me put it this way. Let me explain it this way. I'm trying to make it very easy to understand. So what's happening in this verse? When she found out that Mordecai was mourning, she needed to know, why was he mourning about? Why was he wearing sackcloth? Why was he crying? So what she did is she sent one of her servants, a Enoch, is what she sent to him. She sent a servant to him to find out what was wrong with Mordecai. The person's name was Hatak. He sent Hatak to them to find out what was wrong. Haman knew if he had went to the king that he would have a better opportunity to get what he wanted done by the king, to have it cleared by the king. He wanted to annihilate all the Jews. That is what he wanted to do. Haman wanted to kill all the Jews. But he needed the king's permission to do this. So we see pretty much what he did as he went to the king to bring this proposition before the king. He told the king, there is a certain group of people in your kingdom who refuse to obey your laws. They're not going to do what you have made law at all. A certain group of people. The king, he says, they are not worthy for living. They don't need to be living and being protected in your kingdom because they are not obeying your laws right now. And they don't plan to. King, he says, as he's talking to the king, Haman, I would like to add to your treasury, is what he says. I would like to add to your treasury, king, 10,000 talents of silver to carry out the killing of these wicked people who refuse to go by your orders. I would like to add to your treasury 10,000 talents of silver. Now, when the king heard this large number, and he heard about these people who aren't obeying him, without looking into the matter, the king said, sounds good. Draw up a decree to have it done, to get rid of these people that you're referring to. He didn't even ask who were these people. Draw up a decree and let's annihilate them. No problem. The decree was drawn up, and then when it was brought before the king put his signet ring on it. Signet ring, of course, is only the king would wear this. It would be something that he would stamp down in soft wax. So when it came up, that would be the king's sign that no one can duplicate, because only the king could wear this signet ring to say it is coming from him. Now, back to the money. Usually I like to investigate the money. This is what Haman said that he would put in the king's treasury. Let's put a minute here. It says 10,000 talents of silver. No. We got to investigate this. What is 10,000 talents of silver? That will translate into 375 tons of pure silver. 375 tons of pure silver. Silver is mostly measured in today's culture, not in pounds, not in tons. It's measured in what we call a troy ounce. A troy ounce is what it's measured in. That, of course, is how it's measured. And, of course, its wealth is calculated by the troy ounce. We're talking about 375 tons right here. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the same thing that I was thinking when I came across this. You always, or at least I did, all right, what is it worth in today's money? This type of thousands of talents of silver, 375 talents. What is it worth? Money has a way of fluctuating. You have to find out what it's worth each day as it came up. About 3 days ago, I decided to find out what would that money be worth. 375 tons of silver or 10,000 talents of silver. I pulled up a particular day to find out how much silver was worth at 1 troy ounce. Well, with 10,000 talents of it for that day would be worth in today's money $226,291,702.50. That's what it will be worth. Now that will cause anybody's attention. Even a king, that will cause his attention. And it certainly got the king here of Persia. Okay, I'll draw it up, draw up a decree. I'm ready to put my signet ring in it to approve it. Now, you make sure that money is in my account the next time I check. And of course, that was taken care of. Well, Mordecai found out what happened. He went into deep mourning. And every part of the kingdom where the Jews was, they were all mourning. Soon their death would be rapidly approaching, because it went out a sign that they will all have to die. Everyone that was in the Persian kingdom who were Jewish, they will have to die. This is an order from the king. It's what it was. They would all have to die. So they all went into mourning, including Mordecai. When finding out this news, Esther became deeply distressed. Mordecai then gave Hatak a copy of the decree. Hatak, you don't know what's going on because you live in the palace. What's happening on the streets, you're not being told about what's going on. As for Esther, my family line, my blood family line, she don't know either. All this is kept from her. So he told her, this is what's going on. Take this to Esther and let her know what's happening. Mordecai then told Esther to go to the queen on behalf of your people. You're the queen. Go to your king and talk to the king about this. This decree came from him to kill all of us. Talk to him about that. Now, Esther had obediently kept her nationality secret, that she's a Jew. She kept that secret, just like Mordecai told her to do. That meant that the king who chose her to be the queen of the empire didn't know that the one that he chose is a Jew. He didn't know that. All the people who worked in her harem, they didn't know either. Hatak probably knew because of his closeness to her. However, nobody else knew she was a Jew. But Mordecai pleaded with her. Go to the king. You don't have a lot of time. Get him to reverse this order, or we're all dead. All of us are. And that means go to the king. He will most likely listen to you. He'll listen to you if you go to him. Verse number 10, as we move on to the next one. Again, Esther spoke to Hatak and gave him a commandment unto Mordecai. So there's another order here, a letter that has to go back to Mordecai to let him know. Hatak is the one who's traveling the letter from Esther to Mordecai. So he's traveling. And verse number 11 says, all the king's servants and the people of the king's providence do know that whosoever, this is what she's saying, this is what Esther is saying in the letter to Mordecai. All the king's servants, that means everybody know, and all the king's providences, everywhere throughout all the places, the 127 provinces where the king is controller of all the Persian people, they all know this. What do they know? Whatever man or woman shall come into the inner courts who is not called there by law, and put immediately, who come there and is not called there by law, will immediately be put to death. No questions asked. If you walk into the king's court because you think you have something to say, you won't get a chance to open your mouth, because the guards will kill you immediately. But she puts an exception in that 11th verse right here. The exception is such whom the king shall hold out his golden scepter that he may live. But I have not been in touch or have been called to the king in 30 days. I'm the queen. He hasn't talked to me in 30 days. And I'm suspicious about that. I'm wondering, did he find out that I'm a Jew? Does he have something against me where he hasn't seen me in 30 days and he seems to be okay with it? I can't go there and say, hey, how come you haven't called me or came by or nothing in a month? I can't do that because of this law. And everybody knows this law. I can't do it. And Mordecai told Esther these words. So he's letting Mordecai know. And this is something Mordecai already knew anyway. But he was hoping that Esther would be bold with this and go regardless of the law. Esther sent a messenger back to Mordecai. No one, including her, was allowed to enter into the king's presence without being summoned by the king. If the king didn't call you, you sure better not go. And if he call you, you better win. So the same thing. For me, she says, as she's talking to Mordecai in this letter, for me to do what you're asking me would be putting my life at risk. If you're asking me to go to the king and talk to him about this decree, I'm against the decree also. But I won't be able to open my mouth up inside the courts of the king and say something about this. My life will be at jeopardy the moment I walked in there. The only possible reproof is what she's saying to Mordecai. The only thing that could reprove that if I walked in there, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. If I walked in there and the king held out his golden scepter towards me after seeing me in his presence. If he see me in his presence and he held out his golden scepter, that will stop his bodyguards from slaying me and dragging my body out. That will stop that. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I haven't seen the king in a while. There may be something on his mind. I'm not quite sure. And I have not seen him in a month. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. For any reason the king resented me coming without being sent for, I would have to be taken out and killed before I can open my mouth. It would not have been a matter if I was a queen or not. It don't matter who I was at all. Now, this was a security precaution on the part of many kings during this time. And I'm not going to only just hold that back for kings. I'm going to also include this to very important heads of state pretty much throughout the world. They kind of carry this up to today. There are many historical records that indicate that kings have been murdered within their palaces. Kings, of course, have been murdered on their thrones. And there are many, many things in history that point to this. If she was to arrive, or anyone else was to arrive in the king's court without an appointment from the king, they would not be pardoned at all. They would be immediately killed. Kind of like the Secret Service men who was close to the heads of state in many of the world's heads of state where they go. Their bodyguards are closely around. They don't ask questions or give interviews. They tend to take care of the business. So nothing's pretty much changed from that. She knew at this point she could not just walk in there without being called by the king. So, and the only thing that was going to free her was the king himself would have to put his golden scepter before her. Towards her, the sparing of her life, that's the only way that could happen for an intruder to be spared. That would have to come from the king. Whatever. Let's move on. Verse number 13 and verse number 14. Then Mordecai commanded to her and answered, Esther, think not with yourself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. Verse number 14. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall the enlargement and deliverance arrived to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house will be destroyed. All of your father's house, all the Jewish people were about to be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to this kingdom for such a time like this? This may be your assignment. This could be why you are there. Look where you came from and look where you are now. Esther may have been the queen and to share many privileges with the king. There must be a reason for that. But she still needed God's protection as all the other Jews needed. Because if and when somebody find out that the queen of the empire is a Jew, what do you think they're going to do with you? You will die just as fast as we will. But you are under protection. As I stated earlier, and before we start this lesson, I said in the book of Esther, the title God is not in it. The word prayer is not in this book. But we can see the power of God and the strength of prayer happening through every verse in this book. You don't have to say his name just to know that he's there. When the killing of all Jews got started, as he was letting Esther know, sooner or later, you will be discovered as a Jew. Mordecai had faith in all the Jews, and he knew that they weren't going to be wiped off the face of the earth. He had faith that wasn't going to happen. He didn't say anything about God, but he had faith that the Jews were not going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Esther had access to the king, though. Why? Because she is the queen. She had access to him. She had won the king's confidence and the king's love. She had won that already. He also felt that this is the reason why Esther became the queen of the land. God had everything to do with this. Why is it that the king's heart was moved towards this young Jewish girl? When she came back for the next interview, his compassion and wanting to have her in his court as queen even grew, and he said, "This is the one I want." Not looking for much background, he wanted a Jew, not knowing it, thinking she was just like all the other ones that would come through. But he took it. Mordecai said, "You are the queen by God's will." He did not say the word God, but this was in the plan of God, and Mordecai knew this. This is God's will. Why, you are the queen. This is it. God was not going to let the Jews be annihilated. That would have broken all of God's covenants with the Jewish people. So that wasn't going to happen. Let's move on down the list as we get ready to start wrapping a close to this lesson. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai's this answer. Mordecai said to him, in this verse right here, in a letter, she said, "Go gather up all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast for me, and neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so I will go unto the king." I'll go to him. "Which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish." Stronger words. If I lose my life doing what you ask me to do, I'll die there, doing what you ask me to do. Hatak took this message to Mordecai. Esther understood the situation and what was needed. She knew what was needed. The king would have to be notified to reverse this edict that's going out. This decree had to stop. We knew Haman was behind it all. To investigate this, somebody had to get to the king and let him know this. Esther was faced with the biggest challenge of her life that could cost her her life. She was faced with the challenge. In times of trials, you need to be intimate with him, with God. You need to have a relationship with God in times of trials. That means you have to get close to God in times like this. You have to get close to him. You have to make sure your relationship is tight with him in times like this. So Mordecai gathered all the Jews in Shushan. Shushan, remember I said earlier that there's 127 provinces in the kingdom of these people, and you keep hearing about the one Shushan. Shushan was one of the provinces that was maintained primarily by Jews. That's where most of them stayed, there in Shushan. So Mordecai was to get the people in Shushan. If you get all the Jews in Shushan to know what was happening, they'll spread it throughout the rest of the empire to let them know about, to fast and pray for thee for 3 days. Esther and her maidens would do the same thing inside the temple, inside the palace. After times of fasting, she would go to the king, even though it was against the law and it would cost her her life. 3 days of fasting had ended. The decree was ready to be carried out. The 0 hour is at hand. It's time for Esther to go into the king's guarded palace before him. It's time for it to happen. She would dress her best, naturally. She would come being bold, knowing what she was doing could bring death to her. Can Mordecai's God use her as he had anticipated? Does Mordecai have that much faith, knowing that God will step in and protect her? Does he know that? Has he seen that before? She is going to have to be as ready as possible for this moment. Next week, we'll have part 2 of this lesson, and we'll pick it up from here. I understand that we left you in suspense and hanging, but I want to make sure that you're here next week so we can finish this lesson. Amen? Next week, we'll be studying the deliverance of the Jews. It will be the part 2 of this lesson. See, I'm going to do something nice for you. I'm going to tell you where to find it so you can study it and know what we're going to be talking about next week. You can do that right after we dismiss right now. It's going to be from the book of Esther, chapter 8, verses 3 to 8, and chapter 9, verses 18 to 23. One more time. Esther chapter 8, 3 to 8, and chapter 9, 18 to 23, the deliverance of the Jews. I look forward to seeing you next week. Pastor Wayne Hubbard of Grace Temple Baptist Church. We are in the city of Oakland, 6750 Foothill Boulevard. If you're in town, we have worship services on at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. Look forward to seeing you. God bless. Have a good evening. Amen. Thank you so much.